Hi everyone. Today we're going to be drawing a frog sitting on a lily pad at the pond. You'll need markers and colored pencils, of course a regular drawing pencil to sketch it out, and let's get started. So here's my sample, and you'll notice that my paper is positioned horizontally, so side to side. So you might want to turn your sketchbook horizontally. And I just placed my frog right in the center of my paper, nice and big. I mean, can you see how big I made my frog? Quite large. It fills up a lot of the paper. So I'm going to start with a very large circle. This would be about the size of a large orange or an apple or the size of a baseball. How about that? For those of you who don't eat fruit. And from this circle, I'm going to draw a wavy line like that, and I'm going to create kind of a point, but not a sharp point. This is going to be the frog's nose, or the edge of his face here. So I don't want it too pointy and sharp. It's still pretty rounded. And this is just the basic shape of his body without any legs. So let me show you again my example. And we're seeing the profile of the frog. So we've talked about that before, what a profile is when you're seeing someone or an animal just from one side, the side view. All right, so we have the basic shape of his body without legs. If you want, at this point, you can go ahead and draw a big circle right here for an eye. And then right above it, and maybe off to the right a little bit, you can draw a half a circle or just a curved line to represent the other eye that is on the other side of his face. Okay, and he looks pretty fat right now. I know, but we might thin him out a little bit as we go along. All right, and now we're going to add his legs. So let's start with the most difficult one, which is this hind leg right here, this leg in the back that's on this side of his body, the side of his body that's facing us. So we're going to start with a long oval. Okay, his leg's going to be in really 3 parts. So we have 1 part, 2 parts, and 3 parts. And if you look at it closely, it almost reminds me of like a letter Z. Even though this part is really rounded and big and fat, it's kind of like a Z. See what I mean? Letter Z, and then a foot. Okay, so you might want to keep that in mind as you're drawing it. So here's the top part of the Z. And so if it's like a Z, it's almost going to be like that. And you might even want to do that with your pencil, draw a Z, and then you can thicken up this part of the leg and thicken up this part. But did you also notice that each part is getting a little bit thinner? So this is the fattest part, this part is a little bit thinner, and this part is the thinnest. All right, so, and I do think I made him a little too fat. Maybe my circle was a little too big. So I'm just gonna move the line down, not a lot, but just a little bit. So maybe he's not quite so big. All right, and then we don't really see much of the other leg. We just see it kind of peeking out a little bit. So I'm just gonna add kind of a curved line like that to show the other leg. Okay. All right, next, before we draw these front legs, we're going to divide the top of his body from his belly. We're going to add maybe coming down from the tip of his face here, not quite from here, but a little bit lower. Maybe I want to come down like this, and I just draw kind of a slightly curved line like that, dividing his body, the top part from his belly. All right, and then once I've done that, I'm going to start to draw his front legs. So his front leg, I'm going to draw only in 2 sections instead of 3. So I'm going to start with kind of an oval here, and then I'm going to come forward with 2 lines like that, and I'm going to get very skinny at the end here. So it's fatter here and skinnier here. Okay? And then the other leg, the front leg over here, we're just seeing a little portion of it. So maybe you just want to draw 2 angled lines that are coming out like that. So I'm going pretty fast. You can feel free to pause the video and just take your time and get caught up. And when you're ready, you can start the video again. All right, so I've erased some of the extra lines that I don't need anymore, like the line from the circle and the line right here, because I don't really want this to look like 2 separate pieces. I want it to look like 1 leg. So I erased that little line. I do want to keep this part of the line, but I don't want it to connect necessarily. So I erased here, and again, I just want some of the line here, but I don't want it to reach the end. Okay, so now I'm going to draw the frog's feet and toes, if that's what you call them. That's probably not what you call them, but I'm going to call them toes. Okay, so we're just going to use 3 separate sections for his feet. So if you want to just think of it as 3 lines like that, and then double them up on each side. So you're just adding another skinny line. I'll zoom in real close. And then I'm going to add a circle or an oval, maybe an oval would be better, at the end of each one. So let me show you again. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to double it up. I'm doubling up each line. 1, 2, 3. And if it's not connected, you can just connect it a little bit with a curved line. And now a little oval. Oval, oval, oval. Okay, I'll do this back one. So again, 3 lines, kind of like a fan. It's fanning out. So one's on an angle this way, one's maybe going straight out, and the other one's fanning out that way. Now I'm going to double it up, and I'm going to add the oval. Okay? So now our frog has feet. If you want to put some spots on your frog, so I put some spots on mine, feel free to look up some reference pictures of frogs if you want to look online and find some real photographs of frogs and use that as a reference picture. Some frogs have a lot of markings, some have very few, some have like stripes. I mean, there's all different kinds. So you can design your frog any way you want. I am going to put a few round spots, some circles on him like that. And also his eye, the pupil of the frog is more like a football shape. Okay, so we have a curved line like that and a curved line like this. Okay, so it's like a football shaped pupil. The eye itself is round And this is this pupil is a football shape. So it's really kind of opposite to the human eye. So the human eye, the shape of the eye is the football and the pupil is the circle, right? But on the frog, it's opposite. The shape of the eye is the circle, the pupil is the football. And then I'm gonna make sure I leave a little spot of reflected light, which I know always looks funny before you outline it in black, but we will outline it in black. In fact, maybe I'll do that now so it doesn't look so funny. It always bothers me until I color it in. There we go. You can even outline this circle. All right, and then we just need one more thing, and that's like a little nostril. And I'll show you on my finished project. We're just going to draw that little shape right there. It's like just like a little oval, or you might even think of it as a teardrop shape. Okay, so that's our frog. The only thing we have left to do on him is to color him and maybe add a little bit more texture and some markings on him. But before we do that, let's go ahead and draw our lily pad. All right, so the lily pad, I'm just going to think of it as an oval, and maybe it starts somewhere around this back leg on the other side of his body. So I'm just going to kind of come out and down like that. And on one side, and see how I did that? I kind of, here's my line, and then I'm not going to draw the line. I'm just going to pretend that I'm going through the frog, and I'm going to try to match that up on the other side of the frog. And when I get over here, I'm going to do that V-shape cutout. So see how I did that? There's like a V here, a V cut out in my lily pad, or water lilies, or yeah, water lily pad. Anyway, okay, so there we have that. And then let's go ahead and draw the water line. So here, you might also think of it as a horizon line. Here is the water line that's just maybe a little bit higher than the lily pad. Okay, like that. And I'm sorry if the camera is bouncing around a lot, but I am trying to draw with one hand and film with the other. So we're almost done with our drawing. The last thing we're going to draw with pencil is some cattails. What I'm going to do is just draw some tall curved lines, and at the top I'm going to draw kind of a curvy rectangle shape, or like a long tubular skinny rectangle like that. Okay, and if you don't want to draw, if you want to just do this in marker, that's fine. If you want to do that, you can just draw the tubular part, the rectangle shape like this. Basically, it's a long skinny rectangle with curved ends. The ends are curved instead of squared off and boxy. So if you want to just draw that, and then use your marker. I have a brown marker to draw the lines like that, and there would be a little piece coming out at the top, and then you could outline these. Okay, so those are cattails. So maybe you want to do a few on the left, and maybe you want to do a couple on the right. So again, it's kind of a curvy rectangle shape, long and skinny. And then once you have it, you can add the line with the brown marker. So I put 3 on one side and 2 on the other. And now I'm going to start to outline my frog and my lily pad, and I'm also going to add some tall kind of marshy grass, tall grasses that might be at the pond or the lake or the marsh or wherever we are. And I'm just going to use, I'm not going to bother doing it with pencil. I'm just going to do it with some marker, and you can go right over. I'm going to turn my sketchbook here. You can just go right over everything else. Okay, so maybe some of that, and maybe I want to use a couple different greens too. And then I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna outline my frog. So go ahead with a marker, I'm using green, and outline your frog with marker. Okay, so here's how it looks after I'm done outlining. And you can see that I added some more grass using my green marker. So the only thing I did not outline is the water line, or you might consider it the horizon line, because I think I'm going to just do that with colored pencil. I don't want it to look too dark, too defined with marker. And I'll zoom in on the feet so you can see how I outlined with marker on the feet. So I didn't close off these circles, so hopefully you didn't do that, and if you already did, it's okay. But I decided not to close those off and just make it one continuous line, if that makes sense. Okay, so now we're going to start to color with colored pencil. So hopefully you have at least 2 different colored pencils that are, 2 different color greens. If you have 3 or 4 different color greens, that would be great. I'm gonna show you the 3 or 4 different colors that I am gonna use. So I have a very light yellow green, I have a regular green, I have a dark green, and then I have, this is, let's see what this is called. This is called jade green, okay? And so you can just start by choosing one green, maybe a lighter green, and coloring the entire frog except for the belly. I would either keep the belly white, or you might want to just give it a very, very light coat. I'm not pressing at all. I'm just doing very, very, very lightly on his belly like that. Okay, and then the rest of his body, maybe I'll use this green. You're going to use some pressure, and so it looks darker than his belly. Okay, so go ahead and give one coat of color to your frog. You can make the spots whatever color you want, and then I'm going to show you how to add some shadow and darker shading to your frog. Okay, so I've done one coat of green on my frog, and I just used a light color green, and I did the spots with the same color, but after I was done, I went over it also with a tan, and that's what gave it this look. So it's like tan combined with green. Okay, and on the eye, I did tan, but then I put a little yellow at the top, and I did the nostril here with tan. Okay, so now to give your frog a little bit of a three-dimensional look, we're going to add some shadow or shading two parts of the frog. So you're going to need a darker green now. And if you already used a dark green on your frog, then you might have to go to another color like brown to create that shadow. I'm going to use that jade green. And so what you're going to do, I just turned my sketchbook a little bit. I'm going to shade the bottom half of this leg, but I'm going to stop where that line stops. Okay, so I'm taking a darker color green, and I'm coloring over top my first green, but I'm only going about halfway up. Now, you don't want it to look too much like a stripe. So if you want to press kind of hard here at the bottom, you can, but as you get higher, you want to use very, very light pressure. Not a lot of pressure with your pencil, because you don't want it to look like a stripe, you just want it to look like a shadow. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so then I added shadow to that part. Now I'm going to add shadow to this part. On this leg, I'm going to do the top half instead of the bottom half. So again, right now I'm pressing kind of hard, so it's real dark. But now I'm going to lighten up the pressure, so I'm not really pressing hard. And I'm only going to shade halfway. Okay, so half the leg is dark, half the leg stays that light green. Okay, so now on this part of the leg, guess which part of the leg I'm going to shade darker? Did you guess? Did you say the top half? Or did you say the bottom half? Well, it's kind of a trick question. It's a trick question because I'm going to shade right here on the top, but then I'm also going to shade a little bit on the bottom. So I kind of tricked you. If you said top or bottom, you're right either way. Okay. So now, how about back here? I'm going to shade a little bit darker next to his body. And I'm going to make sure my lines of my marker connect. There we go. So see how I left the edge out, the outermost edge of that part of the leg light green, and I just added the dark green close to his body where it might be dark and shadowy. Okay, let's go to this leg. So which part of the leg am I gonna shade darker with the darker green? I'm gonna shade this side, the left side. Okay, so only halfway. And again, if you want to press kind of hard when you're first shading, fine, but as you get towards the middle, you don't want to press hard. Okay, and now turning my sketchbook again. Now I'm going to be shading darker, coloring darker on the bottom half. Okay, so see how I'm doing that? Now on this leg, I'm going to do it close to the body, there, maybe halfway down, and then stop. Okay, if you want to add a little bit of dark green shadow to this eye, you can. And how about we go all the way along this edge here with just a little bit more of that darker color green. So it doesn't have to be the same jade green that I'm using. It can just be any darker green or even brown. You could try using brown. That would look really good too. But see what a difference that makes? It kind of makes your frog come to life, doesn't it? He just suddenly looks more three-dimensional. So that makes a big, big difference. Okay, and then if you want to add a little bit more marking, what I did on my first frog, let me show you, is I added this kind of almost like a stripe that kind of touched where his eye is and then went down. So I didn't want to outline it with marker because I didn't want it to be stand out too much. So you can just use a darker green, and I'm going to use a different darker green. I'm going to use more like a pine green, or I think it's just called dark green. And I'm just kind of pressing kind of hard, and I'm creating like a stripe almost. See how I did that? Didn't that make a big difference? I think it did. Okay. If you want to add just a little bit more shadow right here, I'm going to use that same green. I'm not pressing hard at all. I'm just adding a little dark green down here to the bottom side of his belly, and maybe a little bit right there. Okay. Last but not least, on the frog, on my first one, I did add a little bit of stippling, and you guys know what stippling is, right? You've done that with me before. So you don't have to do that. You can choose not to, but if you want to, maybe just a little bit right around this line on his belly, just a little. Maybe just a little bit on his leg. Maybe up here where some of his spots are, just for fun, just to give it a little texture. You know, frogs are very textured. They have a lot of, usually a lot of texture on them. So you don't have to do this, like I said. You can just leave him be the way he is. But if you want to give him a little bit of stippling, you can, just for fun. Okay, so now we're going to color the lily pad, the water, the sky, and the cattails. For the water, I'm just using a regular blue, and right at the horizon line, or right at the top line of the water, I'm pressing a little bit harder, and then I start to lighten up the pressure a little bit, and you can just go ahead and color right over top your grass, and you know, all the marker lines you can just color right on top. The only thing I want to point out about this is underneath the water lily pad, I pressed really hard like this, so it looks a little bit darker. Let me show you in my original. See how it looks darker blue, almost like a shadow underneath the lily pad? Okay, so that'll give your picture some dimension, and I could have even added some more right here. So that'll make a big difference. Okay, just to create a darker blue underneath the lily pad. The lily pad, I would color a darker green than your frog. Or if you did your frog really dark, green and brown or something, then I would do the lily pad much lighter. But if you do it a lot lighter, you can create some dark shadow on the lily pad itself. Okay, so right underneath, like a cast shadow, you can add that to the lily pad. For the cattails, I would use the darkest brown you have. Okay, so let me see. The darkest brown I have is probably this one. It almost looks black, but it's dark brown. And I would color my cattails that really dark brown. Okay, and then your sky, I would use a much lighter blue than your water. So if you have some sort of light blue, go ahead and color your sky. And again, you can go right over your marker. Don't worry about that. Don't press hard in the sky. Just keep it very, very light. And also, don't forget that you want to stay in one direction when you're coloring. So see how I'm going side to side? I want to keep going side to side. I don't want to start going up and down or this way or this way. Okay? You always want to stay in one direction because you can see your coloring lines. It'll be noticeable if you change directions. And I mean, sometimes it doesn't matter, or sometimes you want that look, but something like this, like a sky, you want it to be as uniform as possible. You want it to look as consistent and smooth as possible. So in order to get that look, you have to stay coloring in one direction. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish mine. You can go ahead and finish yours. Okay, so I finished coloring mine, and I know it is a lot of coloring. It takes a lot of time. So don't feel like you have to finish this entire project in one sitting. You guys know that we would not normally finish a project like this in one class period. We would normally take probably at least 2 classes to finish this. So, you know, you can work on it today and then work on it again tomorrow or on another day. Okay, and don't forget, you might want to sign your artwork when you're done. I haven't signed this yet, but I will. And I hope that you had fun doing this. I'd love to see your frog drawings when you're all done. So please send me a picture or post it on our private Facebook page. So I hope you guys had fun drawing the frog with me today. And this is our last class, our last project together. So I hope that you had fun being in art class with me this year. I hope you feel like you have learned and grown as an artist. And I just want to encourage you to keep practicing over the summer. Keep drawing in your sketchbook, and I hope that I will get to see you guys in the fall. So have a great summer, everybody.